All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, Carl Rominger here. Welcome to the bonus podcast edition. Oh, boy. I had a good show, I think, on the air. I was getting a little crazy there. I've calmed down now, poured myself some coffee. So we're going to take some more callers. So who do we have? Jim, you're on with Carl Rominger. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Thanks for holding. What's your question, Jim?
Well, I have a real estate law question. I want to know if there's a statute of limitations or something like that for a house that you sell. My wife and I sold a house a little over 6 years ago.
Right.
And we got a letter last week. The woman that we sold the house to has a boundary dispute with a neighbor with a fence that we put up 13 years ago. And she's suing us for $1,200 to replace this part of this fence that's not on her property.
Right.
So I want to know if there's any kind of is there a limitation to, a time limitation? Because, it's been almost 7 years now.
The fence has been up almost 7 years?
Well, the fence has been up for 13, but we sold the house almost 7 years ago.
Okay. And she's coming back to you, even though you...
She says that we knew about the boundary dispute.
Okay. Well, the short answer is, when did she know about it? And
I think she just found out about it because she's getting ready to sell the property.
Right. And she's going to say, I didn't discover the defect until a certain date, so that statute of limitations doesn't start to run for the failure to disclose until I discover it. More interesting question would be if she knew about the boundary dispute. Was it ever filed of record or any court proceedings on it, etc.?
No. When we got the letter, that was the first we heard about it.
So that was the first time you'd ever heard about it from the other side.
Right, and the people that did live there actually sold the house, probably 5 or 6 years ago. Okay. So it's not even the same people in either of the houses when the original fence went up.
Huh. So, and all you ever got was the letter, but nothing else happened after that.
Right. Well, we had to, decide if we were going to defend ourselves or not. But that was it.
And what did you guys do after you got the letter?
Oh, well, we sent back that we were going to, defend ourselves. But I just wanted to see if there was any kind of limitation or,
right.
Right. So we have to go to the hearing and then I guess decide if we're going to move forward then or.
You may have you still may have a statute of limitation defense. I mean, I've been involved in cases before where somebody says, I didn't know about something, but then on cross-exam they go, well, I had been told, or 5 years ago this happened, and you can show that they had some notice of it, and as long as you can push the time back outside the statute of limitations when they became aware of the problem. The other question is, I'm not certain that this particular problem is one that you may have even had to disclose, so we'd have to look at it. But yeah, you have a defensible case. The only question is, if you did know about it and failed to disclose it, and they had absolutely no notion of it, the statute of limitations may toll. But I can't tell you for 100% certain right now because I would really want to research a few things.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right. If I can be any further help, you let me know. And thank you very much for calling.
All right. Take care.
Yeah, these boundary disputes. But there's an interesting question there. I'm not confident that they can be sued for an old boundary dispute in a case like that. But like I said, I'd have to know a little more of the facts. Pat.
Hello.
How are you?
Okay, I got a question.
Yes.
What does declaration of taking a property by eminent domain mean? My mother has a piece of property in the town where it's in. They want to take the property, and they've filed this paper.
Eminent domain?
It says declaration of taking the property by eminent domain.
Okay. And when did you get that?
Yesterday.
Who sent it to you? The township?
An attorney for the town.
Okay. And what land are they? I mean, the short answer is they're probably planning on taking it. What are they using it for?
Oh, they want to use it for a parking lot.
Okay. They do have the power of eminent domain because they're a municipal unit. They have to, however, pay you a fair compensation rate for it.
Oh, they would have to pay for the land? They're just not going to be able to...
Yeah, except here's how it usually works. They're going to lowball you, and then you're going to want to have an attorney help you, because usually what we would do, I'm going to give you an example. If you hired me, I would correspond with the township, find out how much they want to pay you. If we didn't think it was adequate, then what we would do is go after them to make them pay you more. And a court has the power to impanel what's called a board of view, who looks at the land and determines its value.
Okay.
And then you get a higher or lower value. But usually the township will, let's say, I'm just making this number up. Let's just say the township said it's worth $10,000. We would usually be able to find an appraiser who says it's worth $25,000. And we find that the townships usually offer something that's not, I would never take their first offer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Would never take their first offer, in my experience.
Well, they wanted us to take the building down, and then they said it had to come down, so they took it down real quick because they said it was going to fall. And then we paid for that, taking it down, taking it away. Well, now they're saying that they want the land. And
right.
This is what they wanted in the beginning. We've known this for a while.
Right.
So they would have to pay for it, but it's just a matter of how much is involved.
The short answer is yes. And the long answer is yeah, they have the absolute right to condemn. Well,
they do need it. If they'd have been nice about it, my mother probably would have donated it to them.
Right.
But they're being nasty, so what do you do?
Right.
But find a lawyer and go that course, or do I have to answer this letter that they sent?
I would take that letter to a guy like me right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else I should know?
No, that's pretty much it.
That's it? All right. Well, thank you, and have a good day.
Okay, thank you.
Really enjoy your program.
Hey, thank you.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye. Yeah. Oh, boy. That's crazy. The eminent domain. Never take the government's first offer. Never, 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 never. All right, who's next here? Betty, you're on with Carl Rominger. Hi, Betty.
Hello. Carl, thanks for taking my call. My situation is this. Fired from my position, felt like my firing was unjustified, filed for unemployment, unemployment was denied, asked for a hearing, and the date was given for that. I was going to have a representative from unemployment represent me, but the day before the hearing, she called and she said, I just reviewed, and I don't think you have a viable case. So that left me late in the day with no representation for the next day. Ask her, well, then what can I do? She said, well, you can opt just not to go. And she said, and other than that, you can show up and hope your employer doesn't show up, which could happen. Well, opted not to go. Had enough grief. Yesterday, received a letter in the mail with a bill from my former employer billing me for $684 for hours lost by an employee and for the legal cost of him getting his case ready to go to the hearing.
For unemployment compensation?
Yeah.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
I mean, at this point, unemployment's out of the question, out of the picture.
Right. Did you go to the hearing at all or no?
No.
Okay. How long ago was that hearing?
The 20th of July.
Okay. Well, the short answer is you don't owe him any money. That's ridiculous. He's got to bear his own cost.
I mean, he's even telling me that I have 30 days to pay it. I didn't tell him to go hire a lawyer.
No, but I'm trying to tell you, you don't owe him anything.
Okay.
You don't owe him anything.
I was wondering, what legal justification can he have for a bill?
None. It's craziness. And if he tries to pursue, I write him back and say, I talked with my lawyer, and my lawyer says I don't owe anything. And if he tries to pursue it, you let me know, and we'll tell him to go pound sand, okay?
Okay.
So let me just put this in a nutshell for you. You filed for unemployment. A hearing was scheduled. You ultimately dropped the hearing or didn't go to the hearing because you were told that you probably didn't have a claim to pursue.
Right.
And now he wants his defense costs paid by you, the employee.
Right.
He's mentally insane. You're okay.
Thank you.
All right.
And if he pursues it after we write
then you need to come see me.
I will come
and
see
I'll
you.
tell him to go pound the proverbial sand. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Take care. God
Thank
bless.
you.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. All right, folks. We're going to come back here after the break. We're going to talk a little bit more law with John and Kathy and maybe some other callers. See you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, talking all things legal. Weekend Appointments, the name of the show where we answer your legal questions. And, of course, don't forget to go to weekendappointment.com and claim that free will. Oodles and oodles of other folks have. And so if you haven't updated your will recently, you've always wondered about getting a advanced life care directive or living will or medical power of attorney, want to know more about just a general power of attorney, and you want to claim that free will, go to weekendappointment.com. And, of course, we've built up a huge user base there with lots of questions and lots of answers. So if you are having just a little legal trouble of some sort, you might be able to look it up right there. And who's next? Kathy, you're on with Carl Rominger. How are you? Hi, Kathy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Let me sum it up. Oh, first off, I'd have to tell you thank you. You represented my husband years back, and it cost a fortune, frankly, but it was well worth every penny. Bottom line.
Thank you very much.
Here's what we got. We got a letter this week certified from our township, which is South Middleton.
Okay.
And they're telling us that we have an illegal portable toilet, quote unquote. We have a porta-john. We have about 3.5 acres property. It's sitting out back. I have it serviced. Frankly, I use it in the summertime for parties and personal use if I'm out back.
Right.
Anyways, this letter states from Pennsylvania Code, Title 25, Chapter 7364, yada, 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 that, it's allowed for temporary use, basically.
Right.
So what I did is I called the Environmental Protection Agency and asked them point blank, hey, do I need a permit? What do I need? And Tim Wagner, the guy that I dealt with, he was like, hey, I have no problem with it. A lot of people have them on farms, yada, yada, yada. So I called back to the township, to the SEO, and, he wasn't real friendly, and his words were, well, you have to remove it. It's illegal. I said, no, it's not. I'm allowed to have it. If you want me to pump it out and use it strictly for our party use, I'll do that. No, you got to remove it from the property. It's illegal. And I'm going, well, you're telling me that nobody's allowed to have these?
Right.
Is that correct? Or?
Well, the short answer is I'm thinking of a couple things here. First of all, as a structure, or even as a temporary structure, there may be certain portions of the zoning code that are irrelevant as to whether it's a porta-john or not a porta-john. It may not.
It is. I mean, there's no question about it. That is what it is.
Well, no, I understand, but I'm saying is there may be some zoning issues that say you can't have any temporary or permanent structures that don't fit into certain categories in that area. So it may not even be a porta-john issue so much as it's just a general zoning issue. What I would want to do, I mean, if I was looking at it, I want to look at their township code. And what I would tell them to do is to say, listen, can you send me a letter of citation and just tell me, say, I'm happy to get rid of this if I have to. I'll do what I need to do. But what I want you to do is tell me exactly what I'm doing illegally by just giving me a citation, like a letter saying, remove within 10 days because you're violating this code, and that code. Then I can look at it and see what he's claiming you're violating. Because you don't really want to pay a lawyer to read the entire township code just to figure out that there's nothing in it, right?
Right.
And then in the entire municipal code to make sure there's nothing in it. What you want to do is force the government to say what they believe you are doing wrong. And then we can do two things. One is I can look at it and say, uh-oh, you do have a problem here, but here's how we can work around it. Or I can say, uh-oh, you do have a problem here, but they're wrong about this, and you are entitled to a exception, so let's go to the zoning hearing board. Or I can say they're dead wrong, tell them to go ahead and cite you now, and we'll defend it in court, which is, of course, the riskiest strategy and one we take only when we're absolutely certain. But my point is I would force the issue and say, listen, I just need you to write me a letter that says what codes or sections I'm violating, and I will take that to an attorney, and if he tells me I got to get rid of it, we'll deal with it.
Okay.
Force the issue out of them.
Okay, so I wrote it down. I need to, well, they only gave me 10 days, or I would face, quote, legal action.
Did they give you a letter yet?
Yeah, that's what they did. I picked up the certified letter.
Okay, and it cites which sections he's claiming you violated? He's
saying Pennsylvania Code Title 25, Chapter 73.64 A.
Okay. So, see, I'd have to look that up. That's a PA code.
I have it right in front of me. I mean, if that helps. I mean,
let's say Title 25 is environmental protection. Which subsection?
73.64A.
Let's see, 73.6. I'm pulling it up on the web right here.
Okay.
0.64. I got to be able to count to do this. Chemical toilet or other portable toilet. When proposed for use at temporary construction sites, facilities, temporary recreational facilities providing temporary recreational sporting activities such as special event or temporary seasonal facilities other than those intended for human habitation, chemical toilets or other portable toilets may be exempt from the onlet permitting requirements. Okay.
And that's what they have highlighted.
Right.
They sent that copy, and then in the letter, they also have, what is highlighted in the letter, period. And then they just go and say, remove from your property within 10 days of this notice, or immediate legal action is going to happen.
Right. Well, interesting. Do you need, when proposed for use of temporary construction sites, I assume you need a permit for them now.
And I asked that.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, you have to remove it.
Right. But I'm just saying is they're not going to give you a permit, right? So here's how you would set the issue up here. You would go apply for a permit to put it there. And say, I want to put this here for seasonal use. And I assume you don't use it year round, right?
Correct.
So you would apply for seasonal use and see what they say.
Well, I can tell you they're going to tell me no.
Right. And then the next question is do you have the right to have one or not? And I don't know the answer to that.
Well, doing my research, what I've found so far is that I have every right to have it. It's bottom line. They built it. This is what's happening. And
Go ahead.
Can anybody else hear this?
Well, yeah, they will be able to hear it. So maybe you and I need to talk off the air.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't you talk to me off the air about this? Feel free to make an appointment, and we can write them a letter. But what I would tell you to do is go ahead and apply for the permit.
Okay.
Have them reject the permit, and that way we can then say, now, wait a minute, you've given all these other people permits for their parties and their bar mitzvahs and this sort of thing. What are we doing differently?
Okay.
All right?
Now, in the meantime, just one quick question.
Yeah.
Since I only had 10 days, do I have to, quote, have it removed now, or do I have to wait until this all works out?
The answer on that one is you risk the citation. Okay. And so what I would advise you to do is, I'm sure the porta potty company could come pick it up.
Well, I can. It's portable. All I got to do is hook the tractor to it and move it.
Yeah.
Put it in the garage.
Yeah, do that for the moment. Okay. I hate to see you have to fight a citation as well as fight the permit issue.
Okay.
I mean, citation's not that expensive either, though. So, I'll leave that up to you. But I would advise you to move it for the moment. I'm always one to try to avoid as much conflict as possible.
Okay.
All right.
And to get a hold of you, I can just call the office?
Yes, ma'am.
Got it.
All right, Kathy.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Yeah, dealing with townships can really, really make you want to cry, I think, sometimes. Let's see. Who's next? John, you're up next. Hey, John.
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Good. Thanks for holding.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for taking my call. I just an interest. I don't know, just something interesting. As I was about 13 years ago or so when I was in college, I got a speeding ticket. And it was 1997, and I thought I paid the ticket. I'm pretty sure I did, but it was 13 years ago. So about 3 weeks ago now, I got a letter in the mail it was out in Western PA where I went to school. And I remember getting the ticket and everything like that. I was going like 78 and a 65, and I was, 19 at the time. And we got the speeding ticket, and I thought I paid it because I was pretty conscientious, and they have pretty scary writing on tickets about, bench warrants and all that kind of stuff. So, but I got a letter about 3 weeks ago saying you didn't pay it, and you need to pay it, or we're going to report to PennDOT that we're going to suspend your license. And I was just curious as to if there was like any type of limitation on things like that, because I even went to my bank to try and find a tax record,
right?
Not a tax record, a bank statement from '97, and of course they were kind of like no. So I was just wondering what you thought about that.
I think it's a bunch of phooey, and here's why. I've had a bunch of people tell me recently that they suddenly get these things from like 20 years ago saying you owe this money to the government. And right. I think you could successfully defend it. And, of course, they're using their ability to suspend your driver's license as their big ballyhoo. Sure. And one of my clients who was told something very similar. And you know what? I got to go to break here. Let me talk to you more after the break. We're just going to go into a short little break here, okay?
Sure.
All right, hold on a second.
Thanks.
Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, show's weekend appointment, and we're talking with John. John, you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. John, you were telling me before the break, and let me just summarize it. You basically have an old traffic ticket. Out of the blue, you're told you still owe fines or costs on it, and they threaten to take your driver's license away with the mighty power of the government.
That's right. That's right.
And this is going on all over the place right now. And I had somebody else down in York County, Pennsylvania, tell me that they wanted $800 or $400 for some old DUI, and the guy's like, "I paid it off. I remember paying it off." As one of those, things put it behind you in your life, and you pay your last payment, and you do a jig, and you're glad it's over. And 20-some years later, I think exactly 23 years later, County of York tells him he owes him $400, and they're going to take his driver's license away. But if he can come up with some proof that he paid it 23 years ago, then they won't. And I told him that's mentally insane.
Yeah.
You know what? You don't even who has business records from 23 years ago, let alone their personal check registered from 23 years ago. And I know if there's somebody out there raising their hand right now and stomping their feet saying, "I do." Well, you're a very rare bird.
Yeah, and I even called the courthouse out there, and I said, because really it seemed so illogical. And I called them, and I just what's the deal? Why did you wait till now? If I was not paying and I was owing you this money, why didn't you contact me years ago? And they said they started up this new computer program system that was able to track, older outstanding debts. And it was like $125. It wasn't like it was a huge, but it was $125. And she said, you can pay it and pay $6 or $9 more than the fine, and you can plead not guilty, and you can come out here and argue it. And I'm thinking,
right.
And I figured I did pay it. I ended up paying it and pleading guilty because I was like, they didn't even send it to my home. They didn't even know where I lived. They sent it to actually where my parents' car was registered because, again, I was in college at the time, so they didn't even have my current home address.
Right.
So, it was like, it just seemed, goofy. And I paid it recently, but they said if I wanted to appeal it, I could appeal it up to 30 days after I had pled guilty, which I don't know if that's even true or not, but
you can, and you can absolutely with a traffic ticket or any summary citation. But realistically, what a bunch of phooey.
Yeah, and then I got a letter from PennDOT, very cordial letter telling me that I'm now getting 3 points on my license, and I haven't had a ticket in years yet. Now from a ticket from 13 years ago, I'm getting 3 points on my license.
See, if you pled not guilty, they'd never be able to prove you guilty. You'd have won it hands down, right?
Right. Yeah.
The cop's going to come in and go, "Yes, Judge, that's the man I pulled over 13 years, 4 days and 8 hours ago, and I remember exactly what happened."
That's what I was wondering. What's the burden of their proof to even prove?
They have to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, like to even provide a ticket, like a written, like the actual ticket itself is probably not even around anymore.
That's right.
You know?
It's their burden, baby. They can, you know.
I know. I just got to drive out. It was in Bedford, PA, so I would have had to drive.
Yeah.
You know, not that, but I would have had to drive to, take a day off work and drive out to Bedford.
I know. Don't you love the government?
Well, and I figured even to pay an attorney, if he had to write a letter or something like that, it would have been equal to the amount of the fine itself.
Exactly.
So
it's the 3 points that are problematic. What I hate.
Is why I called my insurance company, and they said, "Well, if we got to report it, there's not much because I don't want my rates going up or whatever else."
Right, and they don't care. Your insurance company's happy. Did you know that insurance companies give out shiny little radar guns to police departments?
And that's lovely. It's very nice of them.
Yes, they can rack up because they can justify raising your rates. They say no, we do it to make drivers safer.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Best investment.
Well, I just thought I wanted to find out if there was an alternative route to go, or if I should, But if I appeal it at this point, I don't think I have anything to appeal. So I just wanted to check, and I'm kind of kicking myself for giving them their $120. But at that point, I mean,
No, you got in the meat grinder, and they ground you up, and they gave you a Hobbesian's choice.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what they did.
Yeah. All right.
All right, brother.
Thank you very much, Carl.
All right. Bye.
Bye now.
Carl Rominger here, the show's Weekend Appointment. Don't forget to go to weekendappointment.com, check in. You can comment there. You can post things. Of course, you can always Facebook me. I always enjoy talking with the fans on weekendappointment.com, Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter on the front of weekendappointment.com, or you can sign up and follow me on the Twitter account. You can always see what I'm up to. Steve, you're on WHP with Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl. Thank you very much for your courtesy. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No, thank you.
Carl, I have a question which I already think I know the answer is because I was told, but let me just give you a little synopsis of my problem. In May of 2009, I picked my car up from having it state inspected, and it was done at a local garage. And two of the repairs they said it needed was an older car. It was literally 15 years old. They said was, one, a problem with the right front axle, and two, the other, the rack and pinion had to be rebuilt. And I said, well, look, the car is 15 years old. Why are we, how are we going to fix the axle? I said, well, they don't make the part anymore, but we're going to put on a weld. And a weld is normally stronger than the original part, and I won't have the car fixed unless I think it'll hold up. So I said, fine. They went ahead, they welded the axle, they replaced the rack and pinion, and I was driving home on Dairy Street, and beyond what I know had happened, but the way a gentleman behind me, he said he saw my front wheel start to wobble, and to make a long story short, the front axle on the right side where it was welded broke. The car slammed into Dairy Street. I mean, regular speed. When I say slammed, I mean it just dropped. It pivoted, threw me into the rack and pinion, which had not been repaired properly because on a GM car it's supposed to collapse. It didn't collapse, and my airbag was disconnected. So I slammed into that. So I was taken to Hershey Hospital, where they told my relative that, quote unquote, I was going to die. They put 7 units of blood in me and what have you. And it's now been from May of 2009 through today. I've gone through a series of 2 different operations, an infection in different nursing homes that only made it worse to start back over. But the point is, when they told this relative of mine that I was going to die, the garage that had done the repair where the car had been towed to, they said, well, what do you want to do with it? So he had it taken to a junkyard, and it got squashed, completely. So by the time I came out of it, which even became aware to do anything, was about 7 months later, I had no car. So I called the township police, who had originally come to it, because thank God I didn't hit anybody else. The car just zoomed across the highway up the bank by the railroad tracks. They said they never wrote up a report. They never got the name of the person who was following me, because once he found out that the ambulance crew was there, he continued on. So basically, I have no car for proof. I have no police report to indicate what the damage was. And because of the expenses, if I wouldn't have had the balloon payment on my auto insurance, it's already cost me my job and my house. My only question is, every place I've ever talked to, I've always gone to, quote-unquote, a lower level in a law firm, and they said, well, without any evidence, without any report, there's nothing we can do because we have no proof. And I understand that, but boy, it just bugs me in the back of my mind that, this is costing me, because right now I'm going to have to go from what I was making in my job to trying to live on less than $1,400 a month Social Security disability. And that was not how I planned to live out my life in that regard.
Right.
So is there any recourse, or basically because the car was, like I say, pancaked, that there is no proof, there's no police report, that really I have no way to take any action?
You're running into two problems. The first problem you run into is called spoliation, which is the loss of the evidence because it's been, quote, spoiled, whether that's through a fault of your own or not through a fault of your own. Sometimes usable in the analysis, but if you're alleging a specific defect or some kind of negligence on the part of the mechanic, etc., or a product liability type claim, the other side will defend saying, well, we need to be able to show that that isn't true, and if we just had access to the car, Judge, we'd be able to do it.
I understand.
And of course, your other problem is, of course, the police didn't document what had happened on the scene, so you don't even have a workaround of like an eyewitness to say this is exactly what happened, right?
It was a confluence of everything that should have been done, and I was in no position at that point,
right,
either to save the car or what have you, or do anything else. Because when I finally came around and I asked, well, where is the car? And they said, well, they told us we were going to die. We didn't think there was anything to do on it, so we. So
how do you know what actually happened?
Well, because of what happened is when the rack and pinion, when they came there, my steering wheel didn't collapse. Okay. Which it should have been under any GM that's made to collapse in case anytime something's thrown hard against it. And the airbag did not go off. But the main thing was, on the right part where the axle was, the gentleman behind me said he saw the wheel just start to wobble, and the car immediately fell on that axle onto...
Okay. So you do have an eyewitness who saw something.
Right, but he never gave his name there. He just, once he saw that, that they got an answer.
So nobody knows where to find this guy.
No, and nobody ever took down his name or anything else. So I appreciate you listening, but like I say, I just wanted to get if there was something else. It's only really been bothering me because, it was just something that A, I was not able to respond to at the time. B, it was a person, that we've done this relationship for a long, long time.
Right.
And but because it's made such a fundamental change in the status of my life, that not that I wanted to sue for millions or anything else like that, but it's cost so much, and it's just like I say, even now 16 months later, I'm still in with a wound pump attached to me here, still trying for this thing to heal.
Did you were you able to collect any uninsured, underinsured from your auto policy?
Well, no, like I said, I had $1 million balloon payment on my auto insurance. Now, originally, my health care paid for part of it, and the auto insurance paid for the balance, but then I ran out quickly because in a case like this, when it's run that long, my auto insurance, rapidly ran out, in that case, for my health care policy.
Right.
So
but I'm talking about it. Did you have any uninsured, underinsured?
I don't know what that means.
Okay, UIM. It's a kind of coverage you carry when you get hit by somebody else or the accident's caused by somebody else's negligence on the highway or otherwise involving an automobile.
The way my Allstate policy is, no matter who would have hit me, I would be covered.
Right.
So, I mean, if they didn't have insurance, yes, I have the policy to cover myself. And if I would have had some, which I'm glad I didn't, someone else in my car with me, they would be covered. But like I say, I've listened for you.
Boy, Steve, it does. I feel for you because it sounds like you are kind of locked out of any recovery.
Yeah, no, like I said, but I've never been able to get to an individual, quote unquote, of your level or someone I really respect, because anybody who goes head to head with Bob Durgan and makes my afternoon, I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having the confidence in me, and if you want us to toy with it, I mean, I'd be happy to take a look at it and see if there's any workarounds for you at all, because it sounds like you do have damages. And over the years, a couple times I've been able to, I don't want to say use the word weasel, but figure out a workaround in an otherwise complex problem where there's catastrophic damages, and it's worth my while. It's sort of like wildcatting for oil. I don't have a high likelihood of recovery, but if I do hit, we'll both make some money. So if you want to contact me offline, I'd be happy to put my clerk on it and just see if we can work out any workarounds on the evidentiary issues.
Okay. Do I call the office?
Yeah. Yeah, and you just make an appointment, come see me, and we'll go over. Actually, set up a telephone conference because I know enough about it. You can just refresh my recollection, and then I'll put somebody on it.
For a couple months because as long as I'm attached to this pump here, I'm stuck. So
yeah, phones work perfect, Steve.
Once I can travel, is that okay with you?
Yeah. Why don't you call me though? That way I can get things started and see if there's anything we can do.
All right, what's the number, Carl?
241-6070. 241-6070. And I got to go to break here or Shane's going to kill me.
I really want to 6070. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Take care.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, the show's weekend appointment show where we answer your legal questions. And I kind of just sound off about all kinds of random things. Boy. Let me remind you, you have a lot of legal rights. It's the greatest country. It's still the greatest country in the history of the world, despite what a lot of people are trying to do to it. And I used to sometimes think Glenn Beck was crazy. I mean, just nuts, like lightning bolt nuts. But I listened to him, and I'm fascinated because, I listened to Rush Limbaugh, and I listened to the Savage Nation late at night. I listened to George Norrie, and George Norrie sometimes makes the most sense, which is really scary. But Beck really has started to study the history of the country, and he started to bring to the forefront some interesting information that you just don't hear anywhere else. So if you don't listen to Glenn Beck yet, make sure you stop in and check out some of his stuff. I can tell you, I try to read a lot of stuff. I like to believe that at some level I pay attention to the history of democracy in our country. And I think Glenn Beck is really doing a good job of bringing to the forefront for what I call general public consumption the truth about the history of the country. And it isn't as everybody would want you to believe all the time. And Beck's good about pointing out how sometimes, what the more libertarian view is rather than the straight conservative view versus libertarian view. So I really like Beck. And, of course, John Stossel has a show now on Fox that I highly recommend as well. Anyhow, Jim, you're on with Carl Rominger. How are you?
Hey, Carl, I'm doing well. And I agree with you on Stossel and Beck that Beck certainly has pulled change in direction and things that he talks about more recently. And I think that's great to show the libertarian viewpoint that some people may not be aware of.
Yeah, exactly.
My question for you is, last week you were on with the PA Game Commissioner, and
yeah.
There's a great comment that Second Amendment rights are second-class rights often. But my question is, you stated that the DA was the top law enforcement official in the county.
Right.
And I kind of always assumed that it was the sheriff was the top law enforcement official.
Yeah, the short answer is no. And, in fact, district attorneys have badges. You don't see them. They don't wear them. But yes, actually, they are the top law enforcement officer of the county, and they have all the power. So theoretically, if they tell the state police you can't prosecute this guy, they can cut him off at the knees, even though they're the quote state police, because they make the prosecution.
Where does the sheriff fall into that mix?
The sheriff really is a unique function in Cumberland County and all the surrounding counties. For the most part, our sheriffs do not have general arrest powers per se. In fact, the courts have struggled with whether they have general arrest powers or not. And, of course, we've decided they do, but only under certain circumstances, et cetera, although some of them are cross-registered. And so they're not really a policing force as opposed to being in charge of traditionally courthouse security, providing law enforcement function in conjunction with the police. So quite often they'll back people up, or they have members of the task forces and the special entry teams and things like that, special response units. But for the most part, they were also the glorified process server, and they're sort of like the judicial arm of the court. So they're kind of like the U.S. Marshals in a sense, where, the marshals kind of work for the courts or are very tied to the courts, although they have other functions. The county sheriffs are tied to the court systems and do most of their work in internal security for the county and process serving. So they're the ones that serve a lot of papers on folks, and that's kind of where it's at.
I just read a book, I'm actually still reading it, by Sheriff Mack out of Nevada, I believe, is where he was.
Okay. Now, in other states, they have very different roles and powers.
Well, he fought the Brady gun bill in the Supreme Court, and basically what the Supreme Court found in this case was that the sheriff is the kind of the keeper of the county, and if he wants to not enforce this law, then he doesn't have to, kind of as the governor is the keeper of the state.
Right.
And I was reading this book and I heard you say that, and it just made me think about it. So.
Yeah, no, and it's a statutory thing here in Pennsylvania that puts the district attorney in charge. And it's interesting because the other thing we talked about when Bob, of course, was bringing up the little bird that was taken, and some people like Jerry Fieser, who's a very nice man, by the way, and who I really respect, who, although I gave him a cheap shot the other day about their old head, and probably I felt a little bad about that afterwards. But they game commission guys, like, let me give you an example of their logic. They say, well, we want it so you can be able to carry your hunting license in the pocket, but until the legislature changes it, we're going to have to cite you for not wearing it on your back. And you're like, no, you have discretion. You as a law enforcement agent do not have to cite everybody. You don't even have to give a written warning. You could just leave it. You could put out a mandate. Hey, all WCOs, new policy. Since we're no longer going to enforce the license on the back. So if you do find somebody without the license on the back, tell them it's our preferred method, that you still wear it, but that, it's okay.
Right.
Just like the sheriff.
The example of the speed, the officers not pulling over people going 65 when it's 55, but they're looking for people that are going 85.
Yeah, he can, and the boss can even say, listen, I don't want you guys pulling over people that are going 10 miles over the speed limit. You might catch the governor. I don't want you pulling over people that are unless they're 50 over the speed limit, so you don't catch the. But my point is, there is a lot of discretion involved, and I go nutty about it because that's how they are. They're like, no, we are robots and we are programmed and we must do this, and that's why they stole that nice lady's little bird.
Right.
Because they are robots and they can't help themselves. Well, you know what? That's not what we want. I think in America we're entitled to have a law enforcement who are sane and sensible and want to get things right. And there could have been a lot of ways to approach her. And one of the great ways would have been to go in there and say, we got to warn you, if you don't become a licensed, rehabilitator, we're going to have to take the bird away. So here's what you would need to do to become a licensed rehabilitator. Now, if she blew him off then, we could all go, all right, they wanted her to comply with the law. They gave her zoning officers are the best at this. They roll onto your property and they go, listen, you got to do your fences, this and this. Here's what I need you to do, and then come down and apply for the permit, and it'll all be okay. That's good governance.
Sure.
All right, I got to let you go and take one more caller. Thanks for calling,
Carl.
brother.
Have a great weekend.
All right, thank you. Bye. Okay, who's next? Tom, you're on with Carl Rominger. What's going on? Hey, Tom.
Sorry, ain't paying attention here, Carl.
That's okay. Yeah, what's up, brother?
Hey, I got a legal question for you. I don't know where I'm at. I'm in a divorce case here. I guess it's in the end 3 years now. But something came up 3 years prior to when this all started to take place. My wife had. She was authorized on my credit cards, and what she did was have her son pose as me over the phone. You want to hear my voice. That makes a lot of sense. But she...
Yeah, can you put him on the phone? Yep, he's right here. Hey, how about...
Well, the thing is, she knew all my vitals, my Social Security number and everything. What she did, make a long story short, was transfer all her credit card debt to my cards.
Nice.
Unbeknownst to me at the time. Well, in the long run, I'm ended up paying for all this. Now, like I said, divorces, I'm assuming I get nothing from my attorney, like I've gotten nothing from him in the last 3 years. But evidently, I don't know if she did it or one of the credit cards turned this over to the IRS.
Okay.
And I got to pay taxes on this. It's only like $400 something. Is that deemed earned income that I got to pay income tax?
Are they because some debt was forgiven?
I'm sorry?
They turned you over because some debt was forgiven? Is that why?
Possibly. possible.
Yeah, there's a theory out there that I say theory, but in reality, like if somebody forgives you a large amount of debt, then that's essentially income. And the reason we do that is otherwise people will just constantly loan you money. Like if I was your employer, hey, I'm going to loan you $1,000 this week, and then next week I'm going to forgive the debt.
Right. Yeah.
So for debt that's forgiven is usually considered income. So if you had a credit card debt forgiven, now if you're going to argue with the IRS that no, that wasn't my debt in the first place, then there should be no tax consequence to you because it wasn't validly your debt that was forgiven.
Yeah. Well, the sad thing is the credit card was in my name, but it was not my debt.
Right. No, I understand that, and that would be a factual thing to work out later on with them. But for $400, and I hate to say this, but for $400, it's probably cheaper than fighting them.
Pay it, right?
I feel like I say that all the time on this show, by the way.
Oh, really? I listen to 580 a lot in the morning and in the afternoon. I love Bob. And I heard you a couple of weekends ago. Well, I've been working Saturdays, and I haven't had an opportunity to give you a call.
No, I appreciate you calling.
So I took a day off today just so I could talk to you. That should make your day.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I'll leave you one funny story. There's a judge that I rub shoulders with sometimes in court, where basically I should say butt heads rather than rub shoulders. You know, like people are like, well, you two must hate each other, and it's just funny because somebody else I know is golfing with him. The old story and goes, "Do you know the judge listened to you on the radio last Saturday?" I'm like, "Oh, I wonder if he was spitting nails or what he was." He said, "No, he thought it was interesting," and I was kind of laughing because I was like, "Well, who would have suspected? That's the last guy in the world I thought would ever listen to me."
Yeah, really.
Because I usually have to listen to him.
Right. Hey, well, I appreciate what you just told me.
All right.
I guess maybe I haven't talked to the right people because everyone I have talked to has never heard anything like that. Yeah,
it's probably a debt forgiveness issue, and of course that's what it sounds like. And you can even make sense. I mean, hey, here's your $1,000 that you owe me. And so we used to call these non-recourse loans. So business guys and gals who used to set up these crazy non-recourse loans used to avoid tax for certain purposes. And, of course, that's part of what created the savings loan scandal years ago. So after 86, when they revised the tax code, I think they really clamped down on debt forgiveness. Although I think in a bankruptcy, you don't end up with a tax burden for the debt forgiveness because that happens in the confines of the bankruptcy court, and that dodges that bullet usually.
Right.
I guess Shane's telling me I got to go.
It's been a pleasure.
Tom, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Carl Rominger here. You've been listening to Weekend Appointment. As you know, every Saturday we're on at 2 o'clock, and every 3 o'clock we go with the bonus podcast. Thanks for listening. Go to weekendappointment.com. God bless ya.